everybody. Welcome back to Imagination TV, and we're rounding out 8 or 9 days of some sort of like gnarly slipstream goop we've been cruising through. It's been a bonkers little period as we've gathered with people all around the world to have pretty intense conversations and try and understand what would it mean for us to try and build bridges. What would it look like to explore different economic models? What would it look like to take a concept of mentoring and see if we could make that more normal and build it into the way that we behave every single day. So we pass on knowledge to people that come after us. So we see the children of the next generation as our collective children and not looking at that through some sort of gnarly, corny lens, but maybe just because it's probably helpful so humans make progress, that we pass on our knowledge and we don't make the same mistakes again and again and again, and then have to solve crazy problems with really crazy deadlines. So we've been having, unreal connections from India to Africa to Europe, throughout Southeast Asia, and then back home here in Australia, and bringing together a bunch of people who are interested in an idea of building a social network for good, who are interested in an idea that pushes our imagination to places, because as Einstein once said, we're not going to solve tomorrow's problems with the same level of thinking that's created them. That's why we've created Imagination University, to bring together school students who have been thought of as a problem to be fixed and say, hey, you're not a problem. We're going to give you the stage to show everybody how you can be the solution. Go out and solve the problems for your world in your local areas and the world at large. For university students to organize change, to gather a bunch of their pals to go out. And we think that there's the biggest workforce sitting there dormant in universities around the world. All of these people who have sometimes quite a lot of spare time, who could be volunteering to go down and work with the most marginalized kids in their communities. And by doing that, we build a bridge between the future powerful and potentially the future powerless, and we can help eradicate educational inequity. We're going to work with teachers to use imagination in the classroom to unlock the potential of kids outside the margins. We're going to work with executives to level the playing field and set up a co-CEO program where they take someone from a marginalized background into the boardroom, from someone between the age of 18 to 30. And then we're going to work with citizens so they can have a space to do that project for change they've been yearning to do, or feeling pressured to do, or wanting to start, but not knowing where to put that foot forward. And then probably not having the social pressure of a bunch of kids and the intensity of trying to solve educational inequity and all the stuff we're putting on the table to really motivate them to get going. So that's why we're here. We've got a video that we made, so we'll show that. And then we're going to catch up with some cool cats on the other side.
We know what happened in 2020. So let's imagine 2021.
Let's imagine
what a free and just world looks like. Let's imagine
a university free for all,
with no paywalls to higher order thinking for anyone, anywhere.
Let's imagine
A social network for good.
A bridge for us to come together and redesign the way the world works.
Let's imagine what happens when we tell the kids at the back of the class,
We see you.
There is a generation of kids just like you.
Let's imagine school students, university students,
Teachers, executives, citizens.
coming together to work on a curriculum designed for a future that we hope to build. Now, imagine.
It's happening right here. And you're invited.
Welcome to Imagination University, brought to you by AIM, the Imagination Factory.
Applications are open now.
So Taylor, I got an obscure text from you saying you want to take a class with me, and I was hoping it was about Imagination University, and here we are to have a bit of a chat about it. What sort of piqued your interest as you're looking at what we're doing, and give us a bit of a sense as to why you're interested in dropping in and seeing what you can do in your life around this space. I think you might be on mute. Still on mute.
Hi, my friend. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Nice to see you. Hi.
Nice to see you too.
I mean, I'm always wildly inspired by the work that you do to kind of pluck kids and not only kids, anyone who's sort of feeling like they're sitting on the periphery, on the perimeter, looking in and inviting, inviting everybody into the middle. And I relate to that so deeply. And without, as we've talked about over the years, without my own specific mentors in my life, I would not be where I am today doing the work that I do. So and I'm always so blown away by the way that you're creating these big bits of scaffolding and sort of architecture for other people to join in. I think it's amazing. So
I think
when I
part of the, I'll bring a couple other people in, Taylor, and then we'll whip back. But one of the things which I'm like desperate to try and cling to is this idea of the middle, whatever it might be. And I think the middle is both maybe a bridge between people from cultures, from backgrounds, from nationalities, from genders, from races, and then like the middle of us is a tougher one. Like, I don't know what the core of humanity is, but I do hope that desperately every day that it's got goodness in it, that it's got a sense that we want to do something good for ourselves, that we want to be good to each other, that we want to be good people. Now, being good's contestable, but where what that actually can be defined as. But yeah, I think we're desperate to sort of protect that idea of the middle. And Jamie, I'd love to bring you in and just get your sense as to what you're seeing from the outside as a designer and someone that's worked on different ideas. Like, what is it, what's happening here, and what do you think imagination can do for us as a tool if we can kind of start to unbox it and put it into people's hands?
I guess I love the marriage of the creative and the learning. And I guess so if it's entrepreneurial learning, getting young people excited and connected to their purpose and stuff around social good, but then wrapping it. The stuff that I've seen, Jack, that you guys are doing is beautiful, like wrapping it in storytelling, rich design aesthetics, making it beautiful, making it engaging. I think that blending, that's the kind of, I guess, course design or learning experiences, or maybe, university design of the future. It's that marriage of the realm of the creatives and the realm of the academic, also aligned with purpose and aligned with social good and protecting the planet. It's that assembly. And I guess I'll use that word also, like the architecture, the bigger architecture and the containers to allow that to happen. That's really, I think that's the future. Yeah,
as I've we've been studying, like desperately trying to work out how to, one of my biggest flaws is I'm not smart. I will have to work very, very hard to try and learn stuff. And so that means that I'm constantly trying desperately to borrow from history or borrow from people that have done stuff before. And so I'm studying what's happened with universities. When I look back to like Aristotle and Plato had sort of built these university frames, maybe Socrates as well. And then we went through a period of time where really the aristocracy was the protected space for higher learning. We had behind kings and queens, it was royalty that got to think, and then the rest of the public went out and did the work. And then there was this time when the British said to the States, hey, you guys have lost the plot. You can't open up learning for everybody. Like, you're going to lose all the intelligence, and you can't let these people who are come into this level of thinking. And then it's become connected with money over time and jobs. And so you get a degree, and the degree's worth is valued by what career you can get and how much you make in your salary, which then can be linked in with debt. And that becomes pretty gnarly. And then we had MOOCs arrive, like massive open online courses, which are like, hey, here's the internet, here's all the information. And what we're hoping is that this is maybe the step after MOOCs, which is, this is what a university looks like when you take thinking, you bring a network together, you make it free, and you attack a problem, and you try and do that collectively and with a collective energy and bring that to life. One of the things, Stephen, like it's great to talk in philosophical frames with people that may have a common understanding, and then you have to organize stuff. Like, you have to take 1,400 people into a country and do something. How the heck do you organize people? How do you get 1,400 people to do something, to do a project? How do you take art and then science and then wrangle people to actually take that human potential into outcomes?
I think it's really the curation, Jack. And I reflect on what you just said about MOOCs, and I'd take you back a step when I was in the travel industry, and it was early 2000s when online travel was accessible, and it was the death of travel agents. Well, we still have travel agents. And when MOOCs came out, it was the death of structured education programs, and that didn't happen either. So I think where Imagination University is at the forefront is it's really trying to meld the two together. So I'm firmly believing that accessibility for education for everyone is where it's at. And in that promo video about, education for $0 is also, I think, so relative that you just want to put a stake in the ground to say, this is where you can start to begin your learning journey. And we're going to learn by sharing and learning by doing. That's the best way you can do it.
Hey, Sean, thanks for joining us. Great to have you with us. One of the things which I find a bit gnarly is this idea that being an artist is a specific subsect of humanity, that there's a few group of people who are the oddballs or the misfits and outcasts who are artists. And I'd say that you would be part of that group and self-identify to be a part of that group. But I'd challenge it. I think that we're all artists. I think we all have the capacity to think, to dream, to imagine, and it might be our superpower. So that's one of the tensions which I'm sort of fascinated and pushing into. I'd love to hear the first time that you actually said out loud, I am an artist. So if you could just share that moment and reflect on that group of thoughts.
Hey, so yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like, I'm like the stereotypical, I suppose, artist, like, I'm living, working the artist kind of lifestyle and whatever. But like, I feel firstly, every single person I've met is an artist or a creative in some capacity. I have, friends that are engineers that are also the most creative people possible. And there shouldn't be that, just complete contrast, black and white. You're either an engineer or you're an artist. There's like so many intertwining thoughts, patterns that goes into both of those career paths. And like, for example, like painting is the same to me as engineering. It's like every stroke I do is a calculated decision to make a final piece, and that is like exactly the same in both areas. But anyway, the first time that I admitted to myself that I'm an artist, and it's been an intense journey, and even over this lockdown period, I've been struggling with imposter syndrome and a lot of different things that have really affected me with my mental health recently. But it probably was only actually until last year. So I've been painting and drawing and working professionally as an artist for like 6 to 7 years now, and it was only the last year that I sat back when I was in Mexico on an artist residency, that I sat back and said to myself, no, you know what, you are an artist. Like, you live, breathe, walk and talk art, and I don't need to, and no one needs to be qualified to be an artist. You are an artist because you're a creative person, and you have a creative thought pattern, and you don't have to even label yourself, an engineer or an artist or anything to be a creative person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's me.
I got you. I think in that frame, like, where people get excited when a new device can take a certain style of photo with a certain level of definition. How bonkers are these things that we've got in our head that are just blinking all of these images and watching real-time video for us? Like, if that's not the most amazing artistic creation that is inbuilt into our system that we just have as part, what about tasting something? Like, a tongue is bonkers. This is art, like crazy art. Taylor, how have you, how do you wrestle with keeping, it really is like a spirit, which I think is a connected tissue back to the purity of what we're born with, which is an ability to take the musicality of life in story and bring it to life. How do you balance that with learning stuff as a grown up, which consistently tries to tell you to kill that?
Well, Jack, I can answer that in a few different ways. My primary answer to that is the text that I sent to you. When I saw that you were creating this, it's like, I would love to take a class with you. And I would love to even participate in this way of kind of, as you're saying, to me, as I'm hearing everyone speak, it kind of feels like democratizing knowledge, but that can't happen simply with saying you have access to Wi-Fi. There has to be, like we were saying, architecture or scaffolding in place to kind of siphon the attention to a spot. So I was really excited that you were doing this. I was like, that I'm game. So that's a part of it. I also think it just takes a lot of intentionality, because as soon as all of that beautiful, in my experience, as soon as all of that really exciting, kind of like terrifying energy that we all can relate to, everyone here and absolutely everyone listening, that's just creative and unbridled and a bucking bronco and just wants to share, becomes a part of, becomes a part of a system. It's hard to keep feeling it all the time. So that takes work. For me, I like meet regularly with some friends from grad school, and we talk about plays and we kind of work on stuff, because that's I love that. That's what makes me feel really connected to my self, and I'm staying connected to friends and different creative, we like trade a lot of text messages back and forth with our paintings, and
well, it's a muscle. I think that's what
it's a muscle. That's a
yeah.
great way to articulate it, and it's a muscle that I value, so I make a priority in my life.
Yeah, I'm working on we're working on a bunch of texts for the university, so there is some architecture with it, and one of them is 101 lessons for organizing change. And I was just writing this morning about imagination being a muscle. And now I'm not a big guy. I've never been a particularly big guy. And when I was at school, I just couldn't put weight on. So I weighed like, I don't know, a stupidly low amount, like 45 kilograms or 50 kilograms or something. And I was pretty athletic. I was playing in our football team and I could do some stuff like skillfully, but I was just getting smashed by everyone because I was so tiny. So they put me on this weights program to try and like lift weights, and I just could not grow the muscle. My body just could not grow that certain level of physical muscle that was being asked upon. But mentally, when it came to ideas, I was like, yeah, I can open up here and I can keep testing that. And I can watch Hook 7 times while I'm lying on the floor of my garage and working out how to write a strategic plan for a university. And I can think about what the input is into my soul and into my brain and the people I put around me. And imagination's not childish. It's a muscle. And if we keep training it, just in the same way people train biceps, you can keep your imagination strong.
Absolutely. Hell yeah. I think it's just naming that it's something we value, and then your tribe emerges,
Yeah, which is part of a much broader convo, which we'll get into over the course of the next 10 or so months. So I could talk to all of you forever. We've run out of time. We're going to a bunch of people who are coming into the next segment. So Taylor, Jamie, Stephen, Sean, thanks for taking the time to drop in, and yeah, really excited to see what we can do. So the practicalities of where we're going from here is we've got the next 2 months where we've got applications open for people to join the university, and there's a program for citizens to come up with their own project for change over 10 months next year. And then from February 1, we're doing 5 2-hour courses, and then everybody will be organized in small groups of 5, kind of like the conversation we've just had here, to then have your tutorials once a month powered by Unlikely Alliances. So you'll have a citizen maybe in Sweden who's connected to a university student who's organising in South Africa, with maybe an Aboriginal high school kid, with a teacher who's in New Zealand, with an executive who might be in the United States. And we think that design will also hopefully help power some really interesting chemical reactions as we put different people together. So thank you all for being a part of this, and yeah, stoked to see what we can do together.
Thanks, Jack.
See you later.
See you, team. For those of you tuning in, you might not know much about AIM and might be thinking, who are these people that are saying they're going to open their own university? We have been working for 16 years and learned a bit of stuff. So this next film talks a bit about the history of AIM. It takes us up to last year when we ran a festival of mentoring, and so it doesn't bring the story right up to today. but it'll give you a sense as to what we've been up to in organising change, building bridges, exploring different economic models which value time and knowledge and exchanges of ideas, and then looking at how we can build this social network for good, how we can flip the script instead of looking at these kids as a problem to be fixed, but giving them a stage to be the solution. And this is some of the story of what we've done so far. Opportunities are there, and we're just there to help you.
$50 and you have to wear your budgie smugglers.
National Hoodie Day is a chance to look good and do good.
That next year we're going to run a global campaign to give away 20 golden tickets to 20 university students from 20 different countries to win a one-off scholarship for 3 years to see if they can take our model and rip a generation of powerless people out of inequality. Not only are we going to nail this back home, but we're going to turn our eyes to every kid that's been left behind and see if we can build a better, fairer world for us all. That starts tonight. Get ready for the next 10 years. You ain't seen nothing yet.
You. Sitting in the back row with the fire inside, we see you. You who has fought for everything, we see you. You who knows what it is to rebel, we see you. There is a generation of kids, just like you, waiting for you to see them. So if not you, then who? If not now, then when?
Natalie, thank you for joining us on IMAGI-NATION TV. It's great to catch up with you. Tell us what's brought you into this stratosphere and what sort of piqued your interest.
Awesome. What's up, Jack? How you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me here. Natalie Harris, with Salesforce. I work for Salesforce, another great company, and I was introduced to AIM through Salesforce, through some of my colleagues who just mentioned, we got to get to know this organization. We got to get to know what they're up to. And so we decided to partner with your organization earlier this summer to do some things on our side. And I'm really happy that we did, because I think we're going to be friends for a long time. So happy to be here.
It's I think that bridge and that architecture, when we've been able to go out and do a bunch of kind of hustle and learning and so much of it on like an absolute oily rag or string or whatever the metaphor is, as you're kind of trying to work out how to get things done. And then if we're serious about trying to shift the way the world works, Taylor mentioned it earlier, kind of how do we protect that middle and how do we build bridges between organizations that can influence the world and that do influence the world, like Salesforce, that has made such a big impact on so much of the way people operate, the way businesses run. Trailhead in that community is like such a bonkers like setup that's just lit up for all these people. So all of these ways that we can maybe make a difference, and part of what we're exploring, I think, together is whether that might be part of the home and the architecture that the previous guests were talking about for the university. So yeah, great to see you, and thanks for dropping in, and we're going to whip around and have a chat to a few people and kick around some ideas. Hey Freddie, what's imagination?
Imagination is just sort of embracing any ideas or creativity that you have, and really just, I guess, not being afraid to try new things and experiment and sort of delve into something that's unknown and just kind of see what happens, I guess.
One of the courses for school students in the university is a CEO for Good course, which we've been sort of testing with you and with a few other students, young people in Germany and India and a few other people around Australia, just to test what does it look like if we say to a student from a private school, hey, be a CEO for Good and see if you can give privilege a purpose, and try not to close the frame down too much, and then use that imagination to see what happens. And tell us a little bit about what you've been up to.
I've been mainly focusing on raising awareness within my school. So I've had lots of meetings with, the school principal and lots of the students in my school, and we've been working to try and, I guess, shift the curriculum towards more of a curriculum which embraces lots of different cultures, especially Indigenous culture. And we've been running things like storytelling sessions with the primary school and doing we've had a few, we've started a raffle, which is really exciting, and just been kind of getting as many people on board to raise lots of awareness and just excitement about this cause, which is great.
Yeah, it's sort of working on, and Romy, it's great to see her bring you in now as well, like just this idea of cultivating just a bit of a sense of citizenship, that we're all responsible for each other outside of our own sort of horizontal worlds. And that's what I like about the CEO for Good gig with what Freddie's doing. Yes, money's important, and some fundraising stuff will help us do some stuff at a certain point. But if we're serious about changing mass behavior, we have to be able to change what we value. And that doesn't cost anything. That's actually up here. That's sort of attitudinal for us to work on. Great to see you, Romy. Thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and reflect maybe on what it means to be a citizen and where our responsibility starts and stops.
Hi, Jack. Thanks for having me back. It's great to be here. So I'm an independent theatre director and producer in Melbourne. I guess what was the question? What's our responsibility?
What's the role of a citizen?
What's the role of a citizen? I think we all play a huge role in our society, in our world, and it's up to us to really choose to take an active role. We need to make that choice to go, I'm actually going to step up and I'm actually going to reach out and connect authentically with others. And I really believe that each of us individually can make such huge positive change. And it's just about, having the right people around you, supporting them. And, for me,
if we dig into that a little bit, Romy, when you're telling stories and there's a character there, what I'm fascinated with is, I think we kind of get the broad brushstrokes, citizens' role is, hopefully it's to be connected to each other. Hopefully it's maybe to be good, but I'm interested as to how we get into the motivation questions for all of us, as I think we're just all playing our role in some big dominant film script, which is called life. And so working out how do we find the character role so we can actually change it. So we do what Freddie has created a change in Freddie's life, which is now then impacting the way other people are behaving. That's fascinating, that moment, because I'm sort of interested into how we dig into that and how we understand that so we can actually then work on it together and become aware about it.
Sure. I guess it's, about, like, I think it's quite a personal thing for each individual and kind of going, who am I and what do I care about? And what is unique about me that I can use to make a difference and make an impact? And I think that really understanding each person or each young person or even older is something that we are not currently doing in our education system. And I think by having these close, diverse networks, we're able to really and that's what I mean, I guess, when I say authentically connect, is to actually see that person and understand who they are and support them in their journey of being who they are and, making their impact in the way that they can and that they're passionate about.
Yeah, we had a beautiful visual yesterday where someone was talking about a puzzle piece and saying, I'm a puzzle piece. I don't want you don't have to understand the whole block of the puzzle. Just understand this little bit where we connect together, and then we can have a broader conversation. Hey, Imogen, thank you for dropping in and being a part of this. Tell us, who are you and what do you want out of this experience? What sort of piqued your interest with what we're trying to do?
So yeah, my name's Imogen. I'm about to finish my second year of speech pathology at the University of Sydney. And I'm an Aboriginal woman. I've been a part of AIM since I was probably in year 9 as a mentee, and now I'm a mentor as well. So I really just want to be able to give back to the mentees what AIM gave to me. And I think just really share AIM's message, because I know it's so important being on the receiving end of that.
And I am part of what the big leap for us, the brave leap now, Imogen, is that, we've worked with close to 20,000 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids, like you being one of them, over the last 16 years. And I was at uni at the same university that you're at now when I started AIM. And it was really about gathering a bunch of university students at that point to work out how we could build a bridge to high school kids. And a lot of these uni students had never met the kids we were going to work with, had never met Aboriginal kids. And working out how do we build that bridge, create an imaginative, safe environment to come together and then try and design what a fairer world could kind of look like. Now, I think the way that we're going to end educational inequality for Indigenous kids in Australia is we need the 20,000 kids that have done AIM to now go, right, my turn. I'm going to go and make sure that 100 kids get mentoring. And I'm going to do that for 1 year. And I'm going to pass it on to the next group of kids and next group of kids. We do that. There's 160,000 Indigenous kids in school across Australia. We have a chance of ending educational inequality. Where we were going before opening this up and just putting it in the hands of students like yourselves to run it as a student chapter was we were going to a place where we were going to create a perfect little AIM universe where we'd have 6,000, 7,000 students who got to do AIM every year, all these mentors that love it. We're changing the corporations that we're working with, like potentially Salesforce, or we're building bridges, but we're not actually going to change the whole planet because we're controlling our little world. And so I'm stoked about this moment and being able to go, all right, Imogen, go and apply to be an Imagination president and run an AIM student chapter 17 years after it started and make sure 100 kids get mentoring. And in doing that, you will get the best lessons that you will ever get in any university experience education. And you'll learn what Obama learned in his 20s, which is how to organize. It's how I learned everything that I've got now as a CEO or had as a CEO, is just you learn from hustling on the ground and organizing. So it's it's cool to see you here, and it's cool to see a bunch of university students who have been through AIM who are saying, righto, our turn now, let's go, give us the ball.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been really cool just being able to see my progress, like from being like as a mentee and now seeing how inspired I am, and so many, like even just being a mentor, seeing the kids now, there's just seeing the change that you can you can really make is just really inspiring.
And it's, Natalie, it's kind of like a gnarly part of when we talk about architecture and design, we might have just missed something because we had, like in Australia, we've got 60,000 years of continuous history here. And it was just natural that you pass on your knowledge. And we caught up with a youngster yesterday who was just saying like, well, this is what my family's always done. Like the elders look after us, they pass on knowledge, we pass on knowledge to someone else. Has something happened by design where we've just suddenly stopped passing that knowledge on really generously to the next generation?
You know, I think so. And I think, again, it could be a personal experience. But when I look at that, I think that there is something that's happened. There has been a gap where we just haven't passed it on, like you said. And I don't really understand why and why we don't see the value in that. Obviously, we passed language on historically through verbal sharing, through art as well. But now that we move into this sort of technology age, I hope that the information is being passed on the way that it should be, but there's some connectedness that's sort of missing there. Even with families who sit across the table from each other, are connected through their devices, and then they connect through the person that's in front of them. So I think that one of the things that I probably see is the connectedness. Even though we are in a more connected world, we're certainly not connecting as humans the way that we should be, and from generation to generation. So there's certainly a gap there that I would say for folks.
And the cool thing is we've designed a life and a world that has created a bit of a gap. And we can also design a life and a world that fills that gap. I was at Stanford with a friend who's now, he's like one of Nike's big boss dudes on creative stuff and oversees a lot of their stuff globally. And he just said this one thing once in one of our classes at Stanford, said the pendulum swings back and forward with progress. And just kind of knowing, oh, okay, we've got a beat here. And we've learned all this connected tissue through the internet, which is unbelievable. And now let's just make sure we don't take some of the stuff, lose some of the stuff that was before that, which is really cool as well. Let's mesh it together, and then we can have the best of all of the worlds of what we've been working towards.
1,000%. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome, gang. Well, Romy, Imogen, Freddie, Natalie, thanks for dropping in and having a chat about Imagination University and just kicking around some ideas with us. Where this very example right here of, I think, Freddie, you're down in Melbourne, is that right?
Yeah, I'm currently at school in Melbourne.
At a private school in Melbourne, is that right?
Yes, I'm at St Michael's Grammar School in Utah.
Private school in Melbourne, working on how you can, bring more awareness and understanding and complexity to the way the education system works, bring in books from Aboriginal authors and different people and different stories. We're then dropping to Natalie from Salesforce, moving then to independent theatre and storytelling with Romy, and then to Imogen, where AIM began 6-7 years after being mentored first, who's potentially going to pick up this thing and show that what we're all trying to show, that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people or marginalised kids or people outside them who have been told that we're disadvantaged, we're not a problem to be fixed. We just need to be given the ball to be able to go out and then to lead and create these solutions, and stoked to be able to see a very small ecosystem of what I hope Imagination University is going to look like for lots of people next year. So thank you all for dropping in and being a part of this.
Thank you for having us. And we love the hoodie. The hoodie is pretty swaggy. So.
Well, that's the graduation certificate actually. So we've created a hoodie that at the end of the degree, there'll be all these badges that you get to unlock along the way when you unlock different challenges and complete different tasks. And so everyone will get a personalized hoodie with their own badges that they've unlocked along the way. And we're hoping potentially that'll be part of the work that we do together with Trailhead, that eventually that might be able to become its own economic value that people are working towards, not just within the university, but maybe more broadly at large. And then we get to really start playing with this idea around shifting economic models and what we value. And we're calling the term broadly hoodie economics that we're trying to teach. So that's one of the things that'll be taught at the university. I'm glad you dig the hoodie, Natalie. You'll have to work hard to earn it. And that's the way it should be. All right, gang, we'll catch you soon. And we're going to go and check out a film that we made with a French filmmaker called Laurent Witz, who won the Oscar for the best animated short a while back. And we met him and said, hey, Laurent, we're keen to try and change the world. Could you work with us on a story? And we crafted this story together with a group called M&C Saatchi as well. And we made it 4 years ago, and Taylor, who was on earlier, and a bunch of friends that we've met around the world helped share this film so we could get the message out there to say, look, if we want to change the world, we have to change the way it works. And since then, we've been able to scale the work that we've done to Uganda, South Africa, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, and into the United States, working with African Australian kids in Melbourne and more Indigenous kids around Australia. And now we're really pumped that we're on the cusp of opening up our very own university to give the frame for people to go out and create change. So here's Cogs, check it out, and we'll see you back on the other side.
ticking clock to cure pain. Every second means a mile. Every minute means a day. I hope you're walking in the sun. Hope you're going to be someone. Maybe one day, maybe today.
Hey, Angela and Mayra, how are you?
We're good. Hey, Jack, we're doing well, thank you.
What's happening? How's your Friday?
Great. Going pretty well.
Oh, cool. Hey, tell us what sort of got you guys interested a little bit in what we're trying to do here.
Oh, you can go first. Oh, thank you.
Very generous. That's good.
Look, I had a really fantastic opportunity to have a good talk with Brendan about exactly where AIM is headed, and Oak Flats High School is so excited to get on board with this. I think one of the things that really resonated for me is, I guess, when I think about the really big issues that we have in Oak Flats and in Australia and in the world are things that we share. So, racism and inequality, climate change, all those really big things affect all of us locally and globally. And then I think the flip side of that, I think the most beautiful things about life, culture and family and language and all of those beautiful things, everybody around the world shares those things. We all value those things. And I think the opportunity for us to come together as teachers with young people and talk with people around the world about, well, what's something that really resonates with us? What's an issue that we'd like to tackle and try and make a really positive difference in? I think that's really, really exciting. And I'm so excited for us to be involved.
Oh, it's cool. And it's satisfying for me because I think Oak Flats were maybe the 12th or 13th school to join AIM when we came down to Wollongong, one of the earlier schools to come on, and just after we'd been in Sydney. And we, over time built a pretty methodical structure that everyone was like, all right, cool, here's the rhythm, this is how this works. And then about 4 years ago, just as we decided to take it around the world, I was just kind of looking at it going, I don't know if this solves the bigger problem. I think it's going to get, isolated schools having great experiences, kids having great experiences, but you know, we could never work in remote Australia for Indigenous kids with the model that we had. And it was sort of becoming quite weird, like the barriers to entry. We were suddenly employing 3 or 4 people to do something which I did as a volunteer, and a bunch of my mates just did because we gave a XYZ about the world. We cared. We just wanted to see things change. And so I think part of what's exciting for us as well is we now have this stage with students like Imogen to go, all right, I'm a young Aboriginal student at a university, and you know what, Imogen, we're going to connect you with someone in Uganda, in Zimbabwe, in the United States, and we're going to put you into this network and give you a stage to show the world Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander genius. And that's been the vision with going globally, not running away from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids and saying, oh, we don't care anymore, but actually going, if we can pull this off and build this bridge, there is a pathway for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander genius, which maybe hasn't been built yet. And it gets, you know, kids the chance to completely shatter paradigms and not just have to be experts in being Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, but actually be able to just be free, which would be awesome for me. If we can pull that off in like 10 to 15, 20 years, I'm like, yeah, we did it. Hey, Kirk, how are you?
I'm very well, mate. Thank you for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure to see you. Tell me what sort of piqued your interest in, you know, I know you gave me a call last week. What's pushing you inside that sort of engine room to say, hey, I want to try and pass on some of this knowledge. I want to be a mentor. I want to be a guide. I want to contribute to advancing the way things are working positively.
I make my own program called You Can't Ask That in Australia. The idea of the show is to interview misunderstood and marginalised Australians and really understand people, to stand in someone's shoes and understand who they are. And really, for me, the media is a very, very powerful place where you have a platform to say really anything, to say something. And I've been interested in making my own content for a long time, but understanding the pathways to actually get there, to make your own stuff, to get it on a platform, to get it to be seen are not that obvious. And often you feel like you're reinventing the wheel in terms of doing it when a lot of people have done in the past. So what piqued my interest in getting involved was to, suppose I want to help people work out, to find a voice and work out ways to work out how to go through these pathways to get their content made.
Yeah, and it's so critical, isn't it? Because the story, I kind of think of, and Annie, it's great to see you here. We'll bring you in now as well. I can't quite work out whether we're just playing our part in someone else's story or we're telling a story for ourselves. And I think we kind of oscillate back and forwards between consuming story and then behaving in a certain way. And then sometimes, and we've done this, Mayra, with a number of students that we've worked with over time, and just say to you guys, here's a pen, write your own one. Like, you don't have to play your part in everyone's story. And Mayra, before we just go to Annie quickly, what does it feel like when you pick up the pen and you go, actually, I can write my own story. I don't have to play the part in what someone else's story is of me.
Well, like, I've been in AIM since year 8, and every time we do those, you know, kind of activities, we get a sense of individuality. And we get, you know, how you said, we start to write our own story and we form ideas that, you know, and especially through AIM, you find that you can do like a lot more. You see more people, and they're really like kind of extraordinary with big ideas, which influences others to, you know, make those ideas and have more individuality within themselves.
And the challenge, Annie, is when we've got these bubbles of inspiration or story or moments which really move us. How do we then move into a broader ecosystem like the organization that you work within and are so connected to? And how do we think about design and architecture to level the playing field in, say, a Lend-Lease of the world, or think about how buildings are built, or think about where our energy is going towards to make sure that all of us are keeping a little bit of that that sort of special energy inside where we're like, yeah, we can do something good for the world. We can do something special with our life. How do we keep that alive? And how are you trying to do that in your work?
Look, that's such a good question. And look, thanks for having me on. And it's such an honour to be on this, having this conversation about storytelling, because what we find is that it's actually storytelling at the spaces that we're in, or when we're telling people about a project or a design. Like, imagine telling people about the house that you live in, or about how you grew up, or about a teacher that moved you, or about this new park that you're designing, when you tell a story about it, people form an emotional connection to it. So storytelling has a really, really powerful tool to help people connect with an experience, and also to help to reveal the values of a place, or the values of a family, or the values of a school.
And then
so
there's sometimes with story as well. Like I sat in New York in Herald Square with the biggest advertising media buying agency in the world, and I worked with the 10 biggest like logos from iHeartMedia to Spotify to Pandora to Vice to like a bunch of the big cuts to try and tell the AIM story globally. And Kirk, there's with some of those cuts, I'm not sure they're using storytelling for good instinctively. I'm not sure they're going there to try and create story on what I believe the role is of the journalist, of a storyteller, to try and fight for the truth in humanity, to try and set up some sort of morality. Kirk, how do we balance story that goes into the power of advertisers, which has made us feel sometimes not good about ourselves to then buy things, and then take that power into a space where we can hopefully foster more of a moral conversation?
I really think it comes back to understanding why you want to tell stories, and understanding what you want to say, what you want to contribute, and understanding what your voice is, what's important to you. And often people don't have that. They go, I like the idea of working in the media, I like the idea of creating things, and then get on board that, and then they just sort of get caught up in the flow of it. So it comes back to, what do you want to say? And then finding like-minded people, because making content is a collaborative effort. It's very hard to do every part of it. So it's finding a team, your like-minded team, that you have a voice that you agree with, and forging that path. And as you start making things, and I think that's a very, very important thing, is to make stuff. You got to make stuff. As you make stuff, you start honing that voice and finding new things that you want to say and new pathways you want to go down.
Hey, Mayra, do you know what Wi-Fi is?
Yes.
Can you how does it work?
Well, I don't know what it stands for, like Wi-Fi, but it's circles and it's like above our head. It goes in these things, and you can go on the internet, and that about sums it up.
I think about like how many channels there are for story that are flying through Wi-Fi into like the outer space and then bouncing around everywhere and into our brains. And then there's all of these, like, there's still all these other channels. Like, Angela, you guys have amazing storytelling tools like the school newsletter or school assemblies. And I wonder how much time the school puts into thinking about the curation of an assembly, and whether you could do it differently, you know, what you could experiment with a newsletter, because there's all these established forms of story that sometimes we inherit, which are great platforms for telling complex stories, especially for young people and families and communities.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes we don't put enough value. Well, I think a lot of the times we don't put enough value on those stories. We don't put enough value on our own personal story and sharing that with people, because I think, you know, that point about that human connection is really important. And I think that, you know, one of the ways that we do try and use our social media, our school social media and newsletter, is to really flood that with really positive stories about our school, because from time to time there are negative things that happen, or perceived negative things. And I think, you know, to try and put all of that positivity out there as a really good thing, because I think it does help young people value their own story. And also it's that human connection, you know, trying to encourage young people to have conversations with us as principals and teachers as human beings. You know, I'm not just the principal, I'm a person who's got a mum and a dad and a partner, and it's nice just to be able to shoot the breeze and talk about my life and Mayra's life and have that really nice human connection through storytelling.
Yeah, and like you said in your episode last week, if those stories aren't told, nobody's going to know about them, and you can't get the help you need for the big ideas. And some ideas take more than one person, and sometimes you can't do it just on your own. And I know that through my own storytelling, I have gotten a lot of help, and I'm very fortunate just for saying it. So yeah.
Yeah, well, there's that old phrase that the tree falling in the woods and no one's around.
And I was just going to say very quickly, when you tell a story, you might seemingly look so different on paper, but when you open your mouth, I listen to you and go, hang on, you're actually far more like me than I realized, even though you look very, very different. So when you start hearing from people that look different from you or sound different from you or have a different body shape than you, but when they start talking, you realize you have a lot more in common than you realized.
Which I was going to press in on there, Kirk, because there's, you know, a lot of what we're talking about now makes me feel good. And sometimes stories don't make us feel good, and they're critical to do that. The role of storytelling that makes us uncomfortable, a lot of change comes from being comfortable. The work that you've done with You Can't Ask that is pushing into a pressure point of where we actually start to make the invisible visible. And by doing that, we actually have a chance to reorganize our minds. So being able to be comfortable and uncomfortable, I think, is critical if we're going to be genuine about changing things, because change is not fuzzy and feel good. Change is ugly, and change is sometimes negative and sometimes breaks us, and then we hopefully can remake it.
That's right. And look, and sometimes in those messy stories or those hard stories or those dark stories, people think they're only dark. But as you examine those stories, you realize there's a whole lot of humor. There's people deal with tragedy and heartache with humor and lightness. And these things aren't all bad. There's a lot of positivity that comes out of them. So examining these stories, even though they're challenging and they're tough, you also realize that humans are very resilient and there's a lot to learn from those in a good way.
Annie, when you're sitting in the boardroom, how do we shift the story there? Because if we are all serious about you know, the balance of power, of wealth, of opportunities, we've got to find a way to tell a different story. How does that start?
Yeah, so that's a great question. What we have found, or what I have found, is that storytelling is a really powerful tool to shift the heart, but you've also got to shift the mind, and there is a connection between the two. So you've got to combine the values, the storytelling, the narrative with the data. So you've got to give, you know, even if you use one example or two examples of shifting and showing how things have changed, people see it as hopeful and they will, you know, support you.
Or is that art meets science of trying to have the right brain or all those things? Hey, thank you all for dropping in. We're really excited to see what we can do together again as we bounce across some different worlds, from schools to production storytelling into, you know, one of the bigger corporations that operates not only in Australia but around the world, and thinking about what do these bridges look between. And we're going to do our best to bring you guys together, give you some tools, and then kind of get out of the way and see what the network does and see how you can utilize each other's knowledge and support, just as you did there, Kirk, jumping in to talk to Mara directly. We're going to try our best to sort of get out of the way and just facilitate the experience. So thank you all for dropping in and being a part of this.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you all.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Just getting okay, Professor Lionel Corn, you ready? Okay, out to you, mate.
During this year's fire season, around 110,000 square kilometres of bush, forest and parks across Australia burned. That's the size of Switzerland, Jamaica, Taiwan, Israel, Singapore and Norfolk Island put together. Which sounds like a fun country. Scientists recently said climate change increased the risk of these fires by at least 30%. I'd planned to ask some of the local animals what they think of climate change, but unfortunately 3 billion of them died in the fires, so there's no one left to ask.
Dave, plenty of work for us to get going on in the next sort of 10 years. Seems there's sort of a moment that we're in right now, which is asking and commanding us to lift. It's sort of like the greatest halftime speech of all time, of just sort of, come on guys, you're here. We've got significant, as Professor Lionel Corn said, like we had huge fires and challenges here in Australia. There's fires in Los Angeles and California at large. There's pressure points and floods happening in different places around the world as we're speaking, whilst we have the challenges of COVID. And what we've got to find a way to do is to find some solutions. That's a big design challenge. I think you're on mute.
Thanks, Jack. Great to be here with everyone, and really enjoying hearing everyone's perspective and stories flow through. Yeah, absolutely. I think this undeniably this moment we're living in is been unbelievably overwhelming and having huge impact and ripples across the world. And I think amidst all of that, what we're seeing is also people tuning in to each other's vulnerabilities and becoming more, I suppose, aware of our own vulnerability, and hence, as a result, what else is happening for people in the world. So it feels like, as a result of this unbelievable complexity, we're sort of actually having this moment where we're starting to hone in and tune in with what's happening for everybody. As a result, a sort of a more global mindset is setting in, whilst at the same time we're really looking to kind of connect in with local community more than ever.
I'll just jump to Charlie quickly and come back to you. Charlie, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Have you ever played a game of sport, Charlie?
Yes, yeah.
What sport have you played?
Well, at the moment I focus on cricket, but yeah, I've played quite a few, like swimming. I do athletics. I used to play soccer and AFL, so yeah.
I unfortunately spent a lot, or fortunately, I don't know, way too much time playing cricket and wanted to play for Australia and got sort of into a sphere near the orbit of where I could have gone into a professional career. But part of what I found with cricket was I didn't want to just like play against someone and just be able to get them out all the time, a bowl leg spin. And I was like, oh, that's no fun. Like I actually couldn't get motivated by someone who was at an equal level to me, or even like if they weren't at the same skill level, sometimes my performance would drop. But when I played against people who were the best in the state or best in the country or best around the world for our age group or above, I would lift that performance. And I think, yeah, as Dave was saying, overwhelming, lots of challenges, but heck, one way to look at it is, oh my gosh, it sucks to be part of this generation, or at least I get to do something. There's plenty in the roadmap to go, all right, if we want to turn up, there's some competition here and this is a chance for us to perform. So I think that's one of the things which, this generation of human beings, we have the opportunity in 60, 70 years time to look back and go, well, we played against the best, in terms of the challenges we're looking at in the world.
Yeah, definitely. It's always, and I also find out like it's a lot more fun and like you grow as a person when you play against someone better than you, or, like you're challenging yourself all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, the world's dealt this hand at the moment for us, Louise, and I suppose we better find a way to design our way out of it.
Absolutely. And I think, and thanks for having me. Great to be here, Jack. Just picking up on something Dave said, I think that feeling though now of those wanting to feel connected to community, and we can really seize the moment right now because everyone's had a tough time no matter where you are in the world. And I know I work for a large global organisation and people just want to do something, but I feel like we've lost the knack to know how or what to do. And so I think that's where Imagination University will really come to the fore, is it gives people a mechanism to get involved and a structure to do something whilst meeting amazing people from all parts of the world who are actually trying to create that change.
Well, and that's the only thing why I'm hoping why we go through ballistic experiences as people. Like I've had 16 years of doing this stuff and it's probably knowingly broken me 10 times. I reckon I've been through 3 bouts of depression. I've physically been ill from the work, from trying to just to sustain hope alone in the face of all of this adversity. And I've learned so much, going to the States and working through race challenges in America. I've sat a couple of hours outside of Kampala in Uganda with kids. I've tried to really drink in all of the complexity of this problem around inequality. And it would suck if I just then didn't share some of that, or we didn't collectively share those tools. And one thing that constantly entrepreneurs have sort of come up to me over the years and said, where do I start? So if we can just at least go, and I think where we've got the design right now is we don't want to set up little AIM worlds everywhere. We actually just want to go, here's the tools. Here's 1 or 2 steps you can take forward, and also take the attitude of failing into it. And then let's see, and let's catch each other and let's use case studies, which is sort of how Harvard and Stanford teach. It's all case study based. We learn from real people. So when Charlie goes out and organizes something, Dave can learn something, I can learn something, you can learn something, and up and away we go. Dave, you've worked in a few different gnarly spots around design. Tell us a little bit about what you did in Nepal and what you learned around sort of a design frame in that work.
Yeah, the work in Nepal was after the 2015 earthquakes, and we came together with a bunch of people to try and work out could we really tap into some of the powerful technologies that are emerging in the world today that often aren't used in some of these difficult to work and live spaces, and also how do we really almost dismantle the current architecture of the formal humanitarian industry or sector, which is done a lot of great work, but is also tends to be quite hierarchical and structured and to its disadvantage. So how do we really bring that kind of local community leadership in a really strong way and create those spaces for long-term resilience to be built, because local people know best. And so I think what I really learned there is it's about bringing together unlikely allies, but it's also really about doing it from the ground up. And I think we're empowered by huge technology, but it's always going to come from that microcosm of people who know their communities best and they hold that knowledge.
Yeah, and if you like, I really do believe, as I think Taylor was talking about at the start of the show today, like that there is a middle somewhere where we can all kind of find a common ground. And I fiercely want to protect that, because I sort of swung the other way early when I was younger. I was like, because I'm Aboriginal, my family's Aboriginal through my mum's side, and white through my dad's side. So I've grown up with this sort of white skin, but having black family. And part of my identity challenge was I was like, I am Aboriginal. Look, there's a photo of my grandfather. Like, here's all my mum's art. Like, this is legit. I'm not making it up. But then almost at 17, 18, as we started trying to organize change, it almost became an identity badge for me to be really aggressive and to use anger as a way of a signal of me saying, well, stuff you privileged people, or stuff you big organizations, or stuff you X, Y, Z, you're the problem. And the challenge is when we do that, the ecosystem breaks, and we're not actually looking at system-wide design. We're just looking in isolation at sort of small groups who we can talk to. And that's where I think we break, because I think, as Louise was saying, I know actually fundamentally I've sat, as I said earlier, like in New York with these like crazy ad exec people, and there is a will that we can tap into in the human spirit that can move progress ahead for all of us. And that's the design challenge, I think.
If I could just add one quick thing, it's that, no one individual or organization is ever going to solve the complexities of the issues that we're facing. So it's about how we come together in these, really the spaces where we can be vulnerable and build trust between really diverse minds. And out of the microcosm, that's how we're going to design our way into the change that we're looking for. So yeah, really excited to be here.
I agree, bro. Sorry for cutting you off. Hey, Charlie, what sort of are you interested about with Imagination University? Have you thought about what you might want to get involved in with it?
Yeah, definitely like bringing sport to like just all around everywhere, I guess. Like just giving everyone the tools and opportunity to sort of, do what they want to.
Yeah, nice. That's a good frame to work towards. Louise, have you had much of a sketch of an idea yet as you've sort of been seeing what we're starting to pull together?
Yeah, look, I think earlier this year, because I work for a US-based bank, there's been a lot of talk about Black Lives Matter, and I've had so many employees reaching out to me saying, what can we do? Can you find me something to do? I want to do something in this space, but I want to turn it on its head and say, no, you go and work something out for yourself. Like, don't rely on me. You've got yourself a good job. You've got capability there. Go and do something. So I think it's that piece around getting corporate workers to solve their own problems in terms of how they connect to community. And I think that this will provide the ideal tool.
Yeah, it's the sentiment and the insight which I hadn't quite heard before until this second wave of Black Lives Matter, which is a number of people of color around the world saying, hey, it's hard enough living with this. Do you reckon you could go and read a book instead of asking me to be a personal encyclopedia on everything to do with what it's like to be Aboriginal? And do you reckon you could maybe offer 3 or 4 solutions before you come to me and ask me to do the work and write a 30-page proposal to make it really easy and digestible while you tick a box in a boardroom? Do you think maybe we could do a little bit more of an even share of the work? And I think there's a healthy way to have that conversation, as you said, to flip the script, which is one of the tools that we're working on. And you could enroll everyone of the citizens, everyone who's an employee. You get to engage in a project for change for 10 months, and let's see what we can do. And hopefully then all of these schools that are sitting there without guides or mentors from outside in the community suddenly have someone knocking on the door, and we get to get out of our own little bubbles. And that's what I think is exciting as well, because we get to push back a little bit and go, in a nice, healthy way, we're not going to change the world as one organization, but heck, we might actually, if we all start taking on an individual level of accountability and then get out and act and try and work out how we can solve some of these problems.
Wholeheartedly agree. And I think individual accountability, to use your words, is perfect. That's exactly what it's all about.
Awesome. Well, Dave, you were nodding there. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I think I was just really excited about the sort of cross-generational, cross-barriers, cross-perspective learning that this uni concept feels like it can bring to life. And I think, in this context, to pick up on something Kurt mentioned earlier or you were chatting about, the difficulties of unpicking the narratives. There's so many different channels that we're tuned into these days, even if we're aware of them or want to be or not. And it's really hard to make sense of the noise. So I think spaces like this, where we can actually do some of that sense making together and meaning making together, so that we can actually do the design work of how to make this better, but out of a space where we've built that sort of collective understanding. That to me is super exciting.
And I think I love, Charlie, like the idea that you're thinking about, because we, at our own demise, forget the concept of play. If we forget what play can do for us, for our bodies, for our soul, for communication, and sport is one vehicle for that, art, story, there's just so many avenues for us to have some freedom, where we're not trying to be productive, where we're not trying to get an outcome. So there's that also tension of, let's work on all these macro engineering challenges and societal challenges and economic challenges. And then also, let's not forget about sport, and let's not forget about play and laughter. And I think that's important to balance as well.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta, exactly right. Yeah.
That was probably poor interviewing from me. I just said a bunch of words and didn't ask you a question. Hey, thanks guys for dropping in and being a part of this. Really excited to see what we can do. Again, like a really interesting mixture of people from different fields. And this is how our tutorials will be organized. So you'll be in groups of 5 from different backgrounds and experiences across the course areas. So we've got school students, university students, teachers, executives, and then citizens. And then once a month, you guys will gather to keep yourselves accountable as you work towards the end game, which Natalie revealed that is going to be a hoodie that you get to graduate with own personalized badges of the stuff you've unlocked along the way. So Louise, Dave, Charlie, thanks for dropping in.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks,
Jack,
everyone.
Good to be on the journey.
All good, team. We're going to drop to a tune that we recorded, I think it was last year, with a bunch of youngsters from around the world. So we try and do an anthem every year or so to sort of mark the year. And this one we gather with a bunch of youngsters who worked on a song called A Change Is Going to Come, which is a Sam Cooke original. And this is their tune for you.
It's been too hard to live in, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. keep telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know the change don't come. Oh, yes it will. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down my knees. There's been times that I thought I wouldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to have you all. It's been a long time coming, but I know the change gon' come. Oh, yes it will.
Marg and Sammy, good to see you. Hey, simple question to kick off. What's imagination?
You can go, Margaret.
Super simple question. I think imagination is your capacity to tap into your full potential. I believe, just from a creative standpoint, it's everybody has the capacity to utilize their imagination and the tools that you inherently have. But it's really about being in the right environment and having the right surrounding stimulus to allow you to do that.
That was great. I concur.
Hey, John, when we're under the pump and we've our lizard reptilian brains at play and we're feeling, fear all around us, how the heck do we use imagination or give that fuel? How do you stay positive? How do you have hope? How do we have that battle, that internal battle, to be able to try and get out of those moments? And one of these, from a macro level globally, we're definitely smack bang in one of those moments right now. So a lot of people trying to wrestle with that bridge out and that tension of I'm afraid. Use imagination, be hopeful, do all these nice things. How the heck do we get there?
Yeah, I guess it's doing some research and understanding the tools around us, whether that's transcendental meditation. I personally like that as a tool, ice baths and different things, literally imaginating, staying positive. But it's easy to say, just do it and stay positive. But if you sort of don't have that inside of you at that point in time, then I think it's looking at those tools to kind of reset your physical system, being your body, and understanding, I've been in moments when I've just had full-on panic attacks or nervous breakdowns. And, at times I've not known how to get through it. I've spoken to someone, they've talked me through it, and you kind of get a bit reset. Now, as I've gotten a bit older and wiser, I've realized that there are these tools. I don't have to, if I was young, I'd ring my mum or a friend, as I got older. And now I realize that the tools are within me. I can sit down, I can meditate, I could go for a swim in the water, I could jump in an ice bath if I want to be more extreme. And it really gives you a shock to the system, resets, and then you can sort of go on that journey of, okay, now let's look at this positively. Let's imagine what can we do to solve this issue that we're in, or the thing that's making us feel this way.
Yeah, the mindset change and those tools, ingredients that you suggested, I reckon are great. They're so pragmatic, and being able to, if you can get to water, if you can have a cold shower, if you can try and do something that just takes that state, breathe. Yeah, we had someone on last week who is teaching breathing, and there's Wim Hof who's just done this gnarly coding of breathing.
He's a legend.
Something as simple as Marg, a breath. Like that doesn't cost anything. We don't have to pay anyone $50 for a breath or anything. We've got a tool here, as John was saying. Have you in your life, Marg, as you've sort of, grown up, whatever that looks like, have you become aware that you've got these tools inside of you, and how have you learnt to talk to the tools inside of your body, mind and soul so they can work with you?
Yeah, I think it can often be a complicated tension, especially that young people find themselves in, where you kind of, especially when you're wanting to enact change within very rigid organizations or rigid ecosystems, to really identify, what are the things that are outside of your control, and therefore you need to build new systems around and build community around to kind of enact the change that you want to make, and what are the things that are really within your control. And I think it does take a lot of time, and that you never finish learning about that. And as you grow in from an education standpoint as well, you're just like constantly absorbing new stimulus. And we always talk about this in the work that we do, is you can never plan for a situation. So you could put in all of the caveats that you would want, and there's always going to be something that throws a spanner in the works, or a different type of person that you've never really interacted with. And it's really difficult, but really important to be open-minded to that, and also be okay with not being 100% on top of everything all the time, because I think we all put a lot of pressure on ourselves to, okay, we need to have all of my ducks in a row constantly, know exactly what I'm doing hour to hour. And it's very difficult and a lot of pressure to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I don't know if I've ever seen ducks walk in a perfect row. I don't know if that exists. I think, Sammy, you're exceptional at being able to stay calm from, just getting to know you a little bit and work with you at different stages. And I think that like life is chaos, like natural, beautiful, wonderful chaos. Like we just look outside at some trees. If anyone just wants to go and look at some trees at some point today, what the heck? There's just all of this stuff going on. There's mycelium pumping all underneath. There's all this storytelling. It's moving the network all around. These birds are flying into them and then going up and down, and creatures are going up and down, and they've been alive for sometimes 100, 200, 300 years. Like it's ballistic. And that's just one tree, two trees. And there's tens of thousands in forests and in tiny little pockets around us. The earth is moving, I think, at 1,000 kilometers an hour. The speed of light's 299,000 kilometers a second. Our skin regenerates every 28 days. We are constantly changing. And the misnomer, I think, where we get anxious is feeling like we can control the world instead of trying to move in sync with it. How do you psychologically put yourself in a space where you're trying to create stories that move people and stay calm? How have you been able to do that in your life?
Not a small question. I think the point that you really eloquently expressed just then is perspective. We all have tasks that we need to do, whether it's, getting to school on time, or producing a short film or a television show, or, submitting a report of some kind, or an essay, a paper, and that requires our attention and it requires our focus, but it doesn't require, it doesn't impact on who we are as a person. I think be able to create those boundaries for yourself. So for example, you just mentioned trees, which I very publicly purport my love of trees. And there is an ancient philosopher whose name I do not remember right now, but I will let you know later, who talks about the reason that humans are so enamored by trees is that we look at a tree and what it's telling our brain is that this is a thing of permanence. This is a thing that has lived long before me and it will far outlive me. And the peace of mind that can create in a world where as human beings, we're rushing to do this, to do that, things that are so impermanent. We might be, submitting an essay or whatever to university, which is important in the moment, but in the long game, that's just a blip. And it's, part of a cumulative human experience that we're able to create and imagine and, commit to being a part of, but it doesn't speak to who we are at our core. And that's something that's far more permanent and far more values-based than that, little blip. So creating that perspective, it's as important as it is, and it's also not important at all. And how do you sort of live in the tension of those two things?
Yeah, I love the F. Scott Fitzgerald line, which is the definition of intelligence is to hold two conflicting thoughts in your mind at the same time and still function. John, isn't that part of the challenge for us? Like we can make ourselves feel really important. We can try and do important things. And then, you know, I think, I don't know at the exact time, but I think it's something like 4.9 billion years from now, the sun's just going to eat the earth. And for some reason, when I found that, I was like, oh, I feel a bit better. I'm still going to go and try and do all stuff. But yeah, it's sort of that tension is a balance, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's go with the flow. Do what makes you happy. You know, what's the purpose? Like building another skyscraper or, you know, business that just does a thing. I mean, you know, these things can do great things. They could create change. They could employ people and put a roof over their head and feed their families and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, you kind of got to go with the flow. The happiest people I know are generally the ones that are out going surfing every day, coming in, having fish and chips and a Corona and going to bed and repeating the process the next day, maybe occasionally, you know, doing some stuff to make some money to fund all of that. But, you know, living a pretty basic, simple life. I think some of the least happiest people I know are probably the wealthiest people I know from a financial standpoint. And I think that when you get caught in that kind of racket, that's just make more money is going to make me happy. Oh, that didn't do it. I'll buy more assets. Maybe those assets will make me happy. I need a boat. I need a new car. I need a bigger house. You know, I need to do these things. And I think, you know, you just kind of got to strip it all away and say, like, go with your gut feel. If you feel like you're getting in that moment, like you said, go out and look at a tree. Just slow yourself down a bit and just literally take it as it comes. If you're one of those people that enjoys being busy, enjoys building things, then do it. But when that stops and all of a sudden you get burnt out, take a break until your body gets excited to go and do the thing that you were doing again, and then go back and do that thing if you're passionate about it.
Do you think, you know, one of the things I'm fascinated with, and this is just open to all three of you, I'm really interested in, like, broadly economics. And so I think, like, my brain's understanding of it so far is that an economy is just a sort of big bubble under which we all exchange things. And then we all kind of come up with some sort of value on what we think is valuable. And then, you know, cash has become this currency for exchange.
It's totally not a real thing. It's just something we created.
Yeah. And I'm fascinated by the value system, because you were saying there, John, like going with your gut or going with the flow or taking time. A lot of those things aren't, we can't buy them with cash. And so
none of it does. Yeah, cash is useless. I mean, the only thing it does is try and put a value on something that otherwise couldn't be a value on. But I mean, it's a much more efficient trade if I said, hey, I'm a farmer, I have a chicken, and, you know, you're a dairy farmer and you have milk. I'm actually thirsty right now. How many chickens is it going to cost me for that milk? That's a much more efficient trade than me trying to go to some third-party system that's going to value my chickens and value your milk. They might value your milk higher than I value your milk, and my chickens higher than you value my chickens. And it's all of a sudden that sort of starts to break down that system and make it less efficient. I think that there's nothing more efficient than a barter system where people have something of value, whether that's their time, their knowledge, their labor and manpower to go and do a job or a task for you, or something that they've created or grown, and then trading that directly with another human being.
Jump in there.
I really think in the context of economics, or just, you know, a theoretical outlook on the world and the way that humans trade or interact, I think it's really important to remember from an educational standpoint too, and from a theory standpoint, who created those theories and who created that knowledge and for whom, right? And I think the sterilization of human interaction that economics has created in a way, and we've seen that more so during 2020, the wild year that is 2020, it doesn't account for a lot of human behavior and psychological behavior or social interaction. And so it's from an educational standpoint, and why we find Imagination University really interesting is that like Taylor was saying earlier, yes, we've had this huge democratization of information with the advent of the internet, and now more and more people are having access to, more traditional forms of education, like your tertiary education, but at the same time, they still live within a structure, like Jackie was saying before about, what is the history of the university? What was it made for? It was made for aristocracy and particular backgrounds, of particular privilege. And so how do we kind of bring it back to having kind of real learning experiences in environments that are not that sterile?
And I reckon that the economics frame is actually a frame that we can shift designs around, and there's different. So I don't know if economics has caused some of the wealth discrepancies or the challenges that we see, but I think the model of exchange through a dollar has been part of the challenge. So one of the models we're looking at is this thing called hoodie economics, to go, well, what happens when people come and exchange their time, their knowledge, their opportunities, they open up doors, jobs, all these different things. And then maybe there's a little bit of money there's exchange along the way, but more of it is sort of this knowledge, kindness piece. And can we measure that as an economic theory? And can we see what's happening in this sort of stratosphere? And then maybe see if that can be replicated. There's things like donut economics, and there's different economic theories of how we exchange. And John was talking about, barter system, which is an economic theory. There are ways, I think, communism looked at an economic theory underpinning it, which is more of an equal share. So I think economics is what we want to choose to value. And what's fascinating with that is we are citizens, we are consumers, we are business leaders. We have the ability to potentially shift some of that value, which will be interesting to play with and poke a stick in and see what happens.
Yeah, 100%. And part of the thing that, just following on from what Mark said, is interesting about Imagination University is, almost a return to this idea that, money is not the only currency. It's kind of a bit of a mantra that we talk about a lot at Background, that if you look at the history of why cash and money was created, it was to serve a certain purpose. And alongside the barter system, all different kinds of trade economies, money served, as a conduit, really. It doesn't have value in and of itself. You place value upon it, and then you use it to gain another end. So money is not an end in itself. You're using it to get something else. And if you apply that idea to, ideas or creativity or the exchange of, goods or, services, like I'll do something kind for you, and that's, you're going to do something kind for me, and being able to create this exchange. That money is one way, sure, and it's useful in a lot of ways, but there are so many other currencies that are available to us as human beings that we've almost, forgotten a little bit about, or ceased to place as much value on as
like magic. When you actually have, like, when I work with another writer and we can make a sentence or a story sing, it is so cool. And that's a world.
You can't place a monetary value on that.
No, it's just the best. It's the best. Hey, I could chat to you all day. John, Sammy, Mug, thanks for rocking up, and I'm really pumped, from an important level, like big philosophical things that we're wrestling with, and what we're excited about is the pointy tip of Imagination University, seeing if we can make a real dent in education inequality worldwide. And by pushing into that lever, we're exploring things like the economics that are impacting that, looking at the role of teachers, looking at the role of executives in business, and really trying to have a macro sense of it. And then us kind of getting out of the way and going, all right, here's the tools, let's see what happens. So really pumped to see what we're going to be able to do together over the next 12 months, and then well into the future as we build this thing out for people to go out and create change.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
thanks, Dan. We're going to go hang out with some kids talking about some dreams, and then we'll be back with our final panel and wrap up this saga of me standing here talking for way too long over the last 8 days. So we'll be back in a little bit. We want to try and work out, where do dreams come from? So what do you think? Where do dreams come from?
From the dream time.
What are dreams?
Comes from your imagination.
What is that?
It's like a world of things that you think of.
What do you guys dream about?
Riding a unicorn and a turtle on its back.
A turtle on the back of the unicorn, or the turtle and the unicorn next to each other with you sort of one leg on each?
Next to each other, I'd say.
Next to each other.
Who's powering the movement?
A cheetah.
What do you dream about?
Being rich.
Echiloto chichi.
I want to know, what's a dream?
A train is something that runs on the rails, and it takes people from Brooklyn to the Bronx, or from Queens to Brooklyn.
Who makes dreams?
Us.
Your brain? I reckon dreams are clouds what like are in your head, and like they picture all the stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do actually.
I think I go to sleep and my bed takes me to this stuff.
Your bed takes you?
Yeah, it kind of flies and takes me to these places when I sometimes have dreams.
What is your dream? Do you have a dream?
I dreamed about dinosaurs.
You can dream about like you're in a forest or a jungle. I have dreams when I'm a green guy who can turn into animals.
Who invented dreams?
Martin Luther King.
When do you reckon the first ever dream was ever had?
1981.
So since 1981, when the first dream was had, have all people since that moment been able to dream?
No.
Why do you think no?
Sometimes people need to see stuff and hear stuff to dream. Or some people don't because they can just stay up and don't go to sleep. Yeah, I reckon every kid has a dream. But sometimes you have a scary dream, like on Halloween you might have a scary dream. And those bad dreams are so, like scary. Sometimes you dream about when you are in a scary hotel where there's vampires and zombies and skeletons that are still alive.
How much do you think dreams cost to make?
$10.
$10?
That's a well-priced dream.
What do you think, Bob?
The amount that you have to pay the hospital to get yourself out of your mom's belly.
What is psychology?
Psychology. We don't know the word that we call psychology. And that word is confusing us. We don't know. Psychology. Psychology.
Why do you think we use imaginations? Why as human beings, why do we have an imagination?
You can go off into far places. I don't know. It's hard. Really hard.
Why is it hard?
It's just hard.
Well, that might be our time.
Simba, it's great to see you. Thank you for getting up early to have a conversation with us. Hey, tell us, why are you interested in being an Imagination president and organising change out of a campus in South Africa?
Okay, thanks, Jake. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been quite a long journey since I joined AIM in 2018, and 2019 I had a chance to serve as a Woodhead Scholar. So that's when I learned that I can do so much as an Imagination president. So I've learned so much during the period, and I've realized that majority of university students, they lack awareness about volunteerism. And most of the students, like if you ask them to volunteer, they're asking, what do I benefit out of it? So I started doing some research, trying to understand what volunteerism entails and how best to motivate the students. So I see this opportunity for the Imagination University to also help me develop my mentoring skills, and also how best I can imagine to change that mindset of university students so that they understand volunteerism.
And I think there might be a there's a great book, Simba, which is the last book that Martin Luther King wrote, and he speaks about this idea of universal basic income in it, and it's the last. So just before he was assassinated, or just after he was assassinated, there was planned this big freedom march for all the disadvantaged, for anyone who had faced struggle, for anyone who was outside the margins, to come onto Washington to the front steps and stand there and say, the current model ain't working. There's too many of us sort of missing out. And so he explored this idea of a basic income for everybody at large. And then what I think is fascinating to make maybe something like that work is you've got to have a sense of communal spirit. You've got to have a sense of volunteerism being at your core, that we serve each other, that we serve the world, that is a natural part of the moral code of being a human being. Simon, what makes you care or want to do things in your life that are outside of the field of your job? What makes you want to go a little bit extra, which I've seen you do again and again over the years?
Look, I think it comes from, I think the only way we can cope with today's world is positivity. The only place you get positivity from is other people. And my happiest times are when I'm with lots of people. And as I've got on, I've got a real filter about feeling good. So the minute someone that I find is negative or disappointing me, I don't try and fix them. I don't try and change them. I just move, I walk away. And I find the most positive, nicest person I can be with. And life feels good for that day, that minute, that half hour. And from that, I think the world changes. I think we focus on the negative and we never change. We focus on this momentum. It's very good. So the imagination piece for me unlocks talent in everybody, but it unlocks happiness. It unlocks you can only ever be imaginative. You can be successful. You can only ever be caring when you're happy. And we've all got to get to happy first, and happiness comes from each other.
And there's a couple of really interesting pressure points to push in on there. And one of the things which, we've been wrestling with for a while, we've gone back and forward and going, well, how do you, and we've spoken about with a few of the different people who've come on representing corporates today, how do you really mobilize this generation of people that are employed that want to do good, that the employers are saying, hey, we'd love to get you out to serve the community. And I'm hoping that potentially this gives an avenue where, okay, 40,000 employees, 20,000 employees, cool. Set your project for change in your local community, enroll here. We'll give you the outcomes. We'll give you a community. We'll give you a set of tools. It's free. It doesn't cost the corporation anything. It doesn't cost us anything. We've got scale now that we can reach with that. And then you get this mass multiplier effect, which I think is fascinating. I'll come back to you in a second. But Deborah, one of the things, is it Deborah Lee or Deborah? Sorry.
Deb is fine.
Deb, nice to see you. One of the things that Simon said, which is both powerful and challenging, is that when we talk to the people who give us positive energy, which is one of the coaching notes I've been given in my life as well, a part of the battle and the challenge is with people who give us negative energy as well. So working out how I suppose we get that fuel from those positive engagements and then get ourselves, maybe battle hardened is the wrong phrase, because if we go in expecting an oppositional force, I was just talking to someone this morning who's working on the campaign for Biden, and she's calling Republican voters. And she said, look, the first thing they say is, I don't want to have an argument. So no, I'm not here to have an argument. So working out how we remove some of that oppositional energy to find a way to connect with people who have different energy or different knowledge or different experiences. How the heck do we do that?
It's a good question. It's hard, and it's especially challenging in the US when there's such differences and political points of view. I mean, to me, it's all about, I'm a relational person, and I think it's all about trying to find the universality and what unites us all as human beings. And so we're all parents, we all have our family. And I think, oftentimes, especially in those challenging conversation, for me, it always comes down to, hey, let's get to know each other as a person first, and let's get to know and understand each other's perspectives. And then we can have a conversation to talk about the hard stuff.
Simba, let's go 1,000 years from now. Let's go 10,000 years from now. What's the end of the human story, you think, if we get near towards the end of the chapter? What do you think our legacy is going to be? Are we just going to eat ourselves? Are we going to find a way to find peace and balance? Are we going to be on Mars? What's your outlook, 1,000 years from now?
That's a great question. So it's really a process, a gradual process that we makers are striving for, to get that community where everyone cares about one another, like where we embrace each other, we embrace diversity, we don't look at our color, and we are just one together. So it's a community that I wish to see at the end of the day, you see. So I just hope that through this kind of a platform where people also network, like I'm so interested in this Imagination University, because I'm going to network and also learn from different minds across the board. So
well, I know that
it's a great initiative. Yeah,
I've been able to learn from sitting down with Simon, who I might never have met before if I didn't do AIM, and then have to have an excuse to go and build bridges. And I think 10 years ago, maybe Simon, I walked into a corporate boardroom, which felt pretty uncomfortable for me to try and work out how to do that. What I'm excited about is getting out of the way and then connecting you with Simba, or connecting you with other people around the world to go, let's now see what happens when we turbocharge those moments, which are, Chris, who founded Pedestrian TV, who sits on our board, was on the show during the week. And he said a lot of the work he's looked into with entrepreneurs is that a lot of entrepreneurs still have some sort of support from a privileged environment where someone gets you in through the door and you kind of get the chance to go in one by one. There's too much luck at play and chance for us to meet each other, for you to back me and support us over an extended period of time. That's way too fragile for an idea to either fail or succeed, I think. So that's one thing I'm really interested in, is the network that we might be able to build together of unlikely alliances. There's some thoughts. Say whatever you want.
Question for me. Yeah, look, I think it's true. I mean, the system that we currently live in narrows you down, and the traditional uni system and the traditional pathways to employment. I never went to uni, so I'm fortunate I never got stuck in that system. I've used just imagination all the way through. I had to. It's sort of all I had. And I got it mainly from other people, and I got it from, I mean, Jack referred to sitting down together. I know before I sit down with Jack for 15 minutes, I can be a bit flat. I know after I leave Jack, we're both fired up, we're both ready to run through brick walls, and you need that enthusiasm. I mean, it's very hard to not be positive and imagine at the same time. It's illogical that you can do that. So you've got to get yourself in the right. You've got to manage your head. There's no doubt. And your managing of your own space and your own thoughts in the community you're in is an investment in yourself. There's a great saying in life: it's very hard to help people when you're poor. And poor can be either a fiscal issue, it can be a mental issue, and a health issue. You've got to be strong, and you've got to work out. If you want to imagine, you want to lead, you want to create, you've got to invest in yourself. And the best way to invest in yourself is have people around you, create networks, but positive networks. Don't try and change people that are never going to change, but get to someone that makes you feel great very quickly. And you don't know. I mean, most of the conversations Jack and I have at the beginning of 30 minutes, we don't know where end is going to be, and it never is the same place. It's never in the same place, but we charge off and go and do different things, and then we come back together. So, it's the only way we're going to compete with the world. But you've got, the only point I would make is you've got to invest in yourself, and you've got to be strong.
And that's part of the challenge, Deb, I think, that we have at the moment is often the value we put on a generation of kids who are sitting outside the margins is, okay, you don't get 90 out of 100 in this mathematics test, but heck, you have been through the school of life more than any other 12-year-old, and you have amazing knowledge, amazing wisdom, amazing assets, real knowledge. If we can talk about one one sort of vertical line, which is achievement through a system we can measure. The second one, which I think Simon's starting to allude to, is really a free mind. And that's kind of contrary to a system which boxes knowledge. And that's really fundamentally what we're trying to do, is say, this is a place where you're going to ask a lot of questions. We're going to put some tools on the table. We're going to facilitate a space for complex conversation. And fundamentally at its heart, we want to free the mind so any kid coming out of any background can see their limitless potential. And yes, lots of struggles, lots of challenges that can be put in your way. But surely we should be pushing for a free mind for all of us, so we can have the space to think and see and dance with any idea at any time.
Yeah, I think what you said is I'm thinking about the U.S. perspective from what your thoughts, and definitely in the trends in the U.S. K-12 education market. There's a pendulum swinging away from the focus on testing, and now there's a lot of conversation around how can we make our young people more critical thinkers and creativity, and another buzzword is 21st century skills. And I think that's part of the reason why I was interested in the work that you all are doing in the Imagine University, is that this is an opportunity for kids to be able to, and other people to be able to think creatively and create change and identify opportunities. And one of my most favorite phases in the world is be the change that you want to see in the world. And so arming the next generation with the tools to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And it's been a pleasure to catch up with you all. And I'll just finish with saying to you, Simba, directly, man, you putting your hand up to be an Imagination president right now gives me the greatest hope in the world, because that was what I was hoping to be able to do, maybe do some stuff myself. I never really wanted to lead. I was just looking around going, okay, well, maybe I'll get some people and we'll go down and mentor some kids. And fundamentally, I believe that university students around the world can help lead significant change. I believe that school kids themselves can lead change. I know teachers can lead change. I know people like Simon can and will continue to lead change, and citizens can do a remarkable work. At its heart, this big leap in this moment with Imagination University is saying, all right, end of the control period, end of us thinking we need like funky motivation. Does someone like Simba in the world have the ability to go for 1 year and organize a bunch of university students and help lead a student chapter and pass it on? And if we do that, then we could have thousands of university campuses around the world within a year that are doing mentoring for marginalized kids, and we get out of our own way. So you give me hope, and it's a beautiful way for us to be able to finish this episode and finish this series as we've opened up Imagination University. This is fundamentally about us expecting the best in people, and seeing that if we can bring people together expecting the best of ourselves, then we have the ability to unlock a heck of a lot of human potential. So thank you, Deb. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Simba, for being a part of this. And thanks to everyone that's been a part of the experience over the last couple of weeks. Have fun, Simba. Go get them.
Yes.
All right,
Goodbye.
gang. That's it. We're going to throw to the film about the university that we've made, and that'll wrap us up. If you want to enroll, head to aimmentoring.com. Applications will be open for the next couple of months. We'll be back towards the end of the year for a couple of special episodes as we look at the people that are enrolling at the back end. Some fantastic conversations with people from Hello World, for example, who are looking at a really big cohort of kids enrolling from around the world. We're having conversations in India and the continent of Africa, through Southeast Asia, across Europe. We've got CEOs for Good lining up in Germany. We've got amazing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander young leaders that are coming through, complex executives that are coming to the table, not demanding a different way from themselves, but actually asking, how can I possibly be of service to try and build a better world? And I promise you that if we bring our best and we turn up and we will ourselves to get to work, then with imagination, mentoring, with flipping the script, with the tools around hoodie economics that we're building, with this toolkit around organizing change, and then most importantly, with the social network for good, which is all of you guys, then we have the potential to do something that I think could make a pretty big impact in the world and hopefully make a big impact for good. So 1,000 years from now, we can deliver on Simba's dream, which is all of us getting along and hopefully having plenty left to share. All right, that's enough from me. See you soon. See you at Imagination University.
We know what happened in 2020. So let's imagine 2021.
Let's imagine
what a free and just world looks like. Let's imagine
a university free for all,
with no paywalls to higher order thinking for anyone, anywhere.
Let's imagine
a social network for good.
A bridge for us to come together and redesign the way the world works.
Let's imagine what happens when we tell the kids at the back of the class,
we see you.
There is a generation of kids just like you.
Let's imagine school students, university students,
teachers, executives, citizens
coming together to work on a curriculum designed for a future that we hope to build. Now, imagine.
It's happening right here. And you're invited.
Welcome to Imagination University, brought to you by AIM, the Imagination Factory.
Applications are open now.